Good afternoon, and welcome to episode 2 of Will You Review My CV? I'm your host, Alan Wozni, and today's episode or discussion focuses on an article I published back on July 9th, 2019 on LinkedIn. And the article was titled SaaS and My CV, a real life example from a company called Ooredoo, which is the national mobile carrier in Qatar. So in 2019, I believe there was a need for individuals to understand the latest SaaS or software as a service that was available on the global market that is directly related to their job sector, their job function, or area of business, even when circumstances in their current role don't allow adoption or use of such SaaS in their workplace. So let's talk about Ooredoo. My customer experience, or the UX, the underlying experience with the customer, really on the surface appears amazing, because when you work with them, or you use for 2-3 years, you're using the same mobile provider. You're thinking they're everywhere. They market. The marketing is brilliant. Your user experience or UX is quite great when you're on a day-to-day basis. But this is where they failed. When I pulled back the onion layer, that UX, or the experience, the customer service experience, dropped dramatically. So I saw firsthand how the current tech was in use of, of the was in use by the somebody called the Mitrash, which is they do the Ministry of Interior, and their app. When I sold my car, when I sold my car, I thought, oh, this is going to be tough. I mean, I lived in Russia, I lived in Kazakhstan, and in comparison, it was a lot of friction. That was 10 years ago. And I thought, this is going to be a nightmare just selling the car. Well, it turned out the Ooredoo mobile app would seem like a great low-hanging fruit. It'd be easy, and the Matrash experience is going to be a nightmare. So I started with that. I wanted to get the car sold first. So I successfully utilized the app to sell my car, and I'll tell you what happened. It was a 2014 Toyota Prado. We brought it over from Dubai, had it for 3 years in Qatar, and so the Matrash app on your phone, literally, it handles all the matters. Like you upload your residency, you verify through SMS text or two-factor authentication who you are. That's just to get you on that system. And then, when you have traffic fines, which you get a lot in the Middle East, or at least in Qatar, and your permanent residencies of your family, that you're all registered there. And so that the Ministry of Interior put that in place, seamless process to get you there. So selling the vehicle was actually the same. You just needed to upload the ID of the buyer of the car, upload the details again of your car, making sure, I think you signed. I think we had to physically sign something, and upload, took a PDF and uploaded that, the sale and purchase agreement. And then with the keystrokes, I got the money from the guy who came to my house, and after the verification, it was done within minutes. I sold the automobile, transferred title to the buyer, and I didn't leave the driveway. So imagine if the government ministry, which is the Ministry of Interior, has such tech advancement in place. What could I think from the phone carrier? I literally had this expectation. This is going to even be better. I'll just text them, and I'll be able to close off my account, pay the bill, give the Visa number. No, my expectations were let down immediately as soon as I sent a message, or I was on the app. No, you got to call. You have to call a customer service agent. That's not a feature that's on the app. So you call the customer service agent. Oh, you're terminating your service. You're going to have to go to one of the bricks and mortar stores within the city. It's not a very big city, but still, you know, I sold my vehicle without having to go anywhere. And now I just want to close off my account on the phone. And so I was told I had to go to a bricks and mortar store because it's not a normal service. It's outside the norm, cancellation, termination. So I think Qatar, the telcos, and anyone knows that it's kind of that leading edge. They're always out there really marketing. They typically have the leading edge technology for your home, for your mobile or cellular service. So my expectations already dropped to low level, considering I had to make the office visit. So what could I expect? When I arrived to the customer service, I thought, okay, benefit of the doubt, this is going to work out. I'm in person. I can see, they can see my account. They can get the system. Within seconds of informing the customer service agent that I wanted to cancel my service, she had to call over another guy, another another agent nearby to help with this. And what they did, because this was an off-cycle transaction, that two of them manually calculated, pen and paper and a calculator, to calculate not only my service but of my wife and my two daughters. So we had four accounts plus the house, so there's five. You've got the home service and the four mobile or cellular services. So this off-cycle cancellation needed to bring in an extra manpower, and the system wasn't going to allow the individual I spoke to, so her colleague had to come over. It was incredible to believe that such primitive technological tools, pen and paper, and a calculator, had to be used to calculate, for a company. Billboards everywhere, 5G coming, home broadband, unlimited mobile, latest selection of apps and services, integrated APIs, API integrated with your other services. That company could not handle the cancellation or the off grid. I don't know if it's called off grid, but certainly off the regular the normal plan. And bonus marks came when a third agent, not just two, but three. The third agent had to come in I guess, to help input the manual calculations into the system. And to be fair, they're doing something off grid, off norm, off plan. They needed to override the system. That's probably what it was. I think he or she who came, I can't remember, had to come in and override, give authority to enter these manual calculations. And he handed me the sheet so I could verify. I got to see the calculations. I could redo the calculations pro rata share to verify that was going into the system. The third agent overrode it and I guess give evidence, and the accountant, I'm an accountant, spend a lot of time as an accountant. I understand that. So the guy collected them all up. He took screenshots. He took screenshots of these manual calculations. I mean, it's like incredible tech. The tech came in and to play there because the screenshot was his evidence for the accountants in the back office. My key takeaways. The key takeaways and why this links. I did a podcast on this on episode 25, I don't know what number, but on June 25th, 2019, because I couldn't believe, I couldn't believe such things existed with technology the way it was today. But so the key takeaways and why this links to a previous podcast I had done. The technology in use by the phone company is a legacy system uh, and cannot be readily modified. That frontline people, they had no rights to modify or adopt or change or insert things to the off-cycle cancellation of my subscription. The mobile app. They've created a mobile app, which is, I don't know the term, it's not dynamic. It can't do anything outside of what you see and hear. So the mobile app is proprietary, made specifically for Urdu, the phone company. So any modifications to that would have to be envisioned. Any modification can't happen unless you bring the IT guy in. And this was right at the front line. I don't think that was going to happen that day. And so the phone company, they should have, in my view, they should have envisioned when they're building, if you're going to build this, program for a phone company, cancellation should have been something thought of. And maybe they didn't have that UI, the UX envisioned when they built this app. And the last thing, the customer service rep, who appeared to have limited ability to provide me value-added service. Um, I can't see how they could change the management, the IT guy who's telling them, they have no. I don't think they would give my feedback because who am I? Something would. The frontline service is going to stay like that for a while. Something else will probably create change going forward. But as I highlighted in my June 25th podcast, 2019, that's a couple of years ago now, it's my view that the latest SaaS effectively represents the new products that are available, that are available in the market. Now that's, ERP systems they can bolt on, but that the IT guy may or may not know, IT person, male or female, may or may not be aware of the new systems, and they're not necessarily offered beyond the traditional ERP. So the ERP system in place, new products are happening all over, all the time, um, and they're not being utilized. They just, like, for whatever reasons, the companies aren't going to put in or bolt on the latest SaaS. But that was an example in the Middle East in 2019. But since I've arrived back to Calgary in September 2019 full time, it appears to be consistent with many of small, medium, and large enterprises that I come across. And that's not just here in Calgary, that's across Canada. But the adoption of the SaaS, or the software as a service, it faces resistance. The guarantee in Qatar, they were facing resistance back then. But the adoption usually comes in one or more of the following excuses or arguments against adoption: lack of compatibility. Oh, implementing, or we can't implement this new SaaS because it's not compatible with our existing, the legacy IT systems, and that such lack of compatibility, it won't integrate with our systems. There's no way. I mean, that may or may not be true, and may or may not be an excuse that's a valid excuse. I'm not here to judge that. I just know that will be an excuse. The next one is security and confidentiality. Founders, senior management, board members, shareholders may feel that the existing ERP systems are sufficient. We spent a lot of money on that. And so the new SaaS will potentially violate our confidentiality or security or access to the system. And so we need to preserve that. Cost. And I mentioned cost. A lot of companies spend a lot of money on their ERPs and systems. And why would we need to put in a new system? Not to mention, it's probably going to cost a lot to integrate that SaaS, or that software as a service, into our existing systems. And again, back to lack of compatibility, security, and confidentiality. We can't guarantee that. The last thing I think would be, last argument or excuse would be the lack of incentive. There's not an incentive to change. Why should we change? We've got these systems in place. They work for us. We're busy. We're doing everything we need to do anyway. There's a perception, possibly will lose my job. If the IT person feels threatened, maybe the frontline person feels threatened. So they would, there's no incentive to change. So this is important. This is also important in many companies. And I was working for a state company in Qatar. So budgets and headcounts, very important. So there's no incentive if your budget's going to get reduced by putting something in that would no longer require the staff, the same headcount or staff personnel. I also should point out the Ooredoo staff, the staff themselves, they're going to suffer. So we talk about the CV of the three people there that were involved, or potentially three people: the customer service rep, the customer service rep, the finance people, right? Because they're using old legacy, the legacy people, the legacy finances, because that manual override, that's not part of the regular system. So the finance staff also have to deal with whatever they have in the back office that's not allowing this integration with the front line. So let's go back. So the three people at Ooredoo that suffer: the customer service rep who's sitting there front line, they're not going to learn anything new, or at least they're not going to use anything new until somebody dictates it for them. The salespeople, when they're out selling, they're selling the new services, they suffer as well, because they can't. There's all kinds of features or sales and marketing, digital marketing going on in the markets globally. There's changes, advancements are happening. I imagine the sales rep there as well can't just bolt on things and offer it for their customers. And I mentioned the sales staff, even the IT guy, or girl, and mostly in the Middle East, most of the IT people were male, but the IT person is just going to be fixed with his or her IT system, the legacy system. The new SaaS, they're going to be defensive. And I came across this while I was in the Middle East. Again, back to those excuses why we can't integrate. So that IT person themselves will be limited to whatever the tech tech stack that's in their deck. How does this relate to job search? The SaaS knowledge. Today's SaaS have moved from the IT department to the frontline operations. And I mean, David Ulevich from Anderson Horowitz speaks about this in many podcasts. That was 3 years ago. I'm sure it's very much still the same. That you don't need to attend classes and take, to grab an app from the app store and use it if it helps you in the front line. You don't need to be an IT expert. The SaaS are very affordable. I mean, I think subscriptions for many, there's a lot of free, even the Zoom feature used to be free and it still is free for a lot, the main basic, the entry level. So a lot of SaaS out there is also free. So learning it is also very frictionless. But how does that relate to job search? How can SaaS, how can any SaaS or software as a service get me a job? The answer is the SaaS isn't going to get you a job, but learning and understand the SaaS applicable to your, in your country, in your city, in your community, learning what's applicable to your job function. That can only help if you're going to have future interviews, if you're aware of the SaaS that's out there and that would be applicable to your job. I mean, the more you can learn about SaaS applicable to your functional area, the more readily you'll identify potential gaps. I mean, if you can't fix it in your current company, imagine you sit in an interview and you said, if I had if I was able to do this, I'd implement this type of SaaS for my functional area. Imagine how the discussion you'll have when you're speaking to potential employers in the future. Again, you can download demos, free demos. You can subscribe to their newsletter to learn about keep current on the company. You can follow the company on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. The SaaS out there today. I'm not here to say this is because it changes rapidly. In the 2 years since I've been back to Calgary, I've seen so much advancement in all the tech. I don't, specifically to telcos. I'm not here to speak to that. Finance, fintech, digital marketing, digital sales and marketing. That's pretty much those three areas that kind of touch onto the Ooredoo example. But opinions may vary as to whether the SaaS is applicable to my job function. But just because your current employer chooses not to implement the SaaS, that only reduces your competitiveness in 18 months, in 2 years, 3 to 5 years. By ignoring it, when you come out of that job, I've had this discussion with some of the people, and when I lived in the Middle East, they're just basically they haven't changed their job function because their job function only required them to use the SaaS and the software in place. Your competitive is you'll be if you compare two candidates who don't, one learns and one doesn't. That's only going to be a detriment to you as a job seeker. So next time when I'm asked, "Will you review my CV?" I will immediately respond with, "What SaaS is applicable to your company, and what are you doing to learn about it today?" Have a great day and stay safe. Cheers.